All right. Well, welcome into the show today, everybody. It's the 25th of September, 2015, and we're actually recording this on the evening of the 24th, but you'll be hearing this on the 25th of September. My name is Aaron Montgomery. I'm with Coastal Business Supplies, and you can also find my blog over at aaronmontgomery.info, aaronmontgomery.info. As always, I'm joined by my very good friend, Terry Combs, who's with Equipment Zone, and you can also find his information and whatnot over at terrycombs.com. Terry, how you doing today?
Hey, doing great, Aaron. Well, hey, it's another beautiful day in paradise. I've been going out and running slash walking every morning. It's been 75 degrees. So, as you well know, Aaron, this is the perfect time of year to be in Scottsdale, Arizona. So, enjoying every second of it before I hit the road again.
Nice, very nice. Well, I will be checking out your nice weather as of Saturday afternoon. So, looking forward to getting out there for a week and visiting family and everything. And our weather's been pretty good here in St. Louis, so I certainly can't complain. But we got a pretty awesome show coming up here that I'm excited to talk to you about. Really good idea that you had here, and we're going to basically talk about some of the production concepts that are out there that are either really dated, it was a good idea 20 years ago, or just flat out bad advice. But they continue to be passed down and passed along, and unsuspecting new decorators get all this information. So we'll be talking about the hows and whys today of the perpetuation of bad production advice and what you should be doing instead. So, and we're going to cover all the facets too. We're going to get some screen printing. We got some tips from Andrea over at ZSK for some embroidery stuff that we're going to share, and everything like that. So looking forward to doing this show here, but let's cover a couple of other quick items here before we get into the meat of our show. But yeah, we're recording this tonight because tomorrow I will be knee deep in our 25th anniversary open house, which will actually be happening while you're listening to this. And I like it. It's like time traveling, basically.
I know, exactly. It's so weird. I'm
So
listening to the show tomorrow, Aaron, during work, and it'll be so weird to hear it live and not be talking, but hearing my own voice.
yeah, so it should be fun. And
You know,
speaking of travel, yeah, I think you got some stuff going on there.
well, yeah, this is so weird. Last year my son got, or 2 years ago, my son got his passport, his first passport, so we could go on our first vacation to the Caribbean. We're coming up on our third, and he was right during some kind of government shutdown or something like that, and he did the expedited. It still took. He got his passport like 2 days before we left. It took like 10 weeks. So my passport had expired, and I thought, gosh, I've got about 12 weeks. I'm just going to do expedited. I sent it in I think last Wednesday. I got my new passport yesterday. It was crazy. So,
Wow, awesome.
but Aaron, now you and I have to go back to the UK so that we can walk out of the airport there in London, get stamped, and come back in and try to explain to the guy at customs. How long were you in the country? What was it, 10 minutes, Aaron? Yes, it was 10 minutes.
Got to get that stamp.
Okay, and then we're telling him the story. Okay, see, our plane, we missed our second flight, so we had some time, and we wanted a stamp here in London, and okay, stamp, Heathrow, get back inside.
Yeah. Well, I actually just got an email from the passport service that I used 10 years ago to get my passport that I had lost about a week before I went on a trip, and they sent me an email and said, "Hey, your passport's going to be expiring in 4 months. Do you want us to help you renew that?" And I said, "Sure." And they said, "Great, send us your credit card."
Well, my passport service is the U.S. government passport office, so they didn't help me like that. But I don't want to complain. Taking 1 week to get it turned around is incredible.
Yeah,
so,
that's really good for them, definitely.
2 months from tonight, Aaron, I'm going to be packing to leave for Montego Bay, and when this show is being broadcast, 2 months from tomorrow, the 25th, I'll be sipping rum and Coke and in Jamaica with my son. So
that'll be awesome.
That, yeah, exactly.
Good deal.
Did you by chance see Christine Shreves? Did you see her post today on Twitter about our show?
No, I didn't get a chance to. I've been so crazy getting ready for this anniversary. We had all of our vendor partners in today to get their stuff set up for tomorrow, and basically stuck in a conference room all day today. So when I saw this on the show outline, I was like, oh crap, I should go look, and I just haven't had a chance to yet.
Yeah, yeah. She sent me a message and a message to us, and that said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that I had a customer on the phone today, and the customer said, 'Are you the same Christine from the Two Regular Guys podcast?'"
Nice.
So made her feel good. Made me feel pretty good too. I don't know
Yeah,
about you.
yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely makes me feel great. That is awesome. Good, good
Christine
stuff.
did a, Christine did a great show with us last week,
Yeah,
and as always, when we have Christine on the show or Eric down at Black Duck, we don't have to say very much. Those guys are just man, just tons of incredible information. So hats off to Christine and to Eric when they come and help us out on the show.
absolutely. Good stuff. Yeah, she was kind enough to kind of basically fill in for me as I was in Marquette, Michigan, waiting for and that was interesting. I guess so the whole reason that my flight got delayed and I couldn't join you at the start of the show was you heard on the news about American Airlines and them having the system problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're calling that, huh?
Yeah, so it wasn't necessarily caught specifically in that, but because I was in Marquette, Michigan, and there's one or two flights that go out of there a day, um, the uh, the flight that came in the night before was delayed because of all that, and
Oh, okay.
because there's not that many flights and stuff like that, and there's only one crew, the FAA regulations requires that they get so much downtime or sleep, basically. So plane was sitting there, everything was sitting there, and we were 3 hours late because the FAA wouldn't let the crew on the plane. So
Oh my gosh. Okay, that makes perfect sense now. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah, yeah. So
Well,
that was interesting to say the least.
the ripple effect of those things is people who don't travel as much as you and I that don't really appreciate the ripple effect of a storm in Atlanta or landslides in California impacting your flight out of Boston.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, well, let's. We didn't get a chance last week since I wasn't on, but we can kind of briefly recap our time in Orlando. Great show. Got to talk to some folks that we've talked to in the past, and continue to get great information out of them, like our friend Dane Clement from Great Dane Graphics, and some other folks. Glenn from M&R stopped by and talked to us. But we also had an opportunity at that live broadcast to talk to some new folks that we've never talked to. Michael Kaminsky from Sublimation 101 stopped by. You drug Bill Redeker over unwittingly and made him say a lot more than he wanted to.
He did corner me later on and tell me how uncomfortable I made him feel. but he had. We were talking about war stories at trade shows, and I witnessed one with him at the Philly show, and he was across the aisle down a couple of booths from me, and I witnessed just a crazy person talking to him in his booth, and I wanted him to share. So
yeah. So Bill's with Tech Support Screen Supply out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So great screen printing supply company up there, and
right.
definitely worth catching him. But so we had a great show. We did our seminar, and that went really well. I think very, very well attended. The advice, and I kind of expected the comments to read this, but when we got our comments back, we do our seminar on basically the basics of all the different garment decorating methods, and the problem with our seminar is they have it on the morning of the last day of the show, and everybody's like, they need to have this before the show or at the start of the show so they can.
Right, and we get that comment every time we do the seminar.
Yeah. So hopefully, if we do this again at another time, we'll get scheduled a little bit differently. And there was also a little controversy, and I'm not sure if hopefully we'll still get invited to do the Fort Worth show, but kind of the controversy that we saw with the ISS Orlando and the Surf Expo and the co-location situation there. I don't know if you weren't there. I think for those of us on the ISS side, it's certainly maybe more fun than anything to kind of get over to the Surf Expo side and check it out, and certainly see different things, see different businesses. But this year, I guess they shut that whole thing down. So
Right.
if you were,
You basically had to have a brick and mortar retail store to be able to get the special pass to go over to the Surf Expo side. And unfortunately, that wasn't announced pre-show. And I don't know that the ISS folks or were aware that that was going to happen. I think that came down from on high. And I know our friends that run the ISS show took a lot of heat from customers, from attendees who didn't get the opportunity to go over there and at least check out the show and see, get the opportunity to see some new things and maybe see some potential marketplaces. So
yeah,
that was kind of tough to take for some people. For me, I last year I went over there and did the walk around, and it wasn't a real big deal that I didn't get to go again. It's nothing that involves me, professionally. So. But I did feel bad from the guy all the crew from ISS having to take quite a bit of heat from the attendees about that.
yeah, I saw several people cornered, getting kind of yelled at, and that's certainly never fun. And and the way I look at it too is it's kind of like when we talk about SGIA, that you have to go see it. You have to kind of you may not be involved in a 200-foot wide inkjet solvent printer or something along those lines, but you have to see it. You have to understand that these other things are out there and kind of understand the enormity of the, and like I said, you get ideas for new markets. It just helps everybody as a whole. So, whatever the thought process was behind that decision, I think hopefully somebody realizes what a mistake that was. So
yeah, the kind of lame excuse I heard was that some of the folks at Surf Expo were upset that all these screen printers and embroiderers and sublimators and directing armor printers and every other kind of decoration, they were coming over seeing our graphics, and if they're not in retail stores, we don't want them to see our graphics and steal the ideas. And my response was immediately, what, they don't have a catalog? They don't have a website? You think that those graphics are a secret?
yeah.
So I thought that was a little lame.
Yeah. Well, it's called spin, Terry. It's what us marketing people do. Quit poo-pooing on our parade, all right? All right, good stuff. Well, we'll let that be. But today, if you're listening to this on the 25th. Today is the last day to. So hopefully your entries for the Impressions Awards have been put in the mail already, and you are going to have that to them, because to 25th is the day that's been extended to, and so nice of them to extend that. And we actually announced that on our live broadcast there in Orlando. And one other quick note that I had regarding that in general, our friend Erin with an E.
Right.
She's made some changes and not have no idea of any part of the story, but I know that she's a nice person and a good person and a friend, and so she is looking for work. So if you're interested, reach out to us through Two Regular Guys, and I can get you in touch with her. And so hopefully she lands on her feet somewhere, and hopefully.
How does that work? We get 5%. We get 5% of our first year salary. Is that how that headhunter thing works? Or?
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna we got to pay for this show somehow, Terry. The free chicken wings just aren't going to cut it. So
well, Erin's awesome, and yes, absolutely. I know she is. She's right now looking for a new position, and man, she's got a lot of contacts out there in the world, and could be a real asset to someone.
Yep, absolutely. And then, and on the flip side of it, obviously we hope nothing but the best for the folks at ISS, and I'm sure they'll find somebody that can hopefully fill her shoes, and everybody does well and ends up good on the other side of this. So we'll leave it at that. But
Well,
definitely.
hopefully that new person will know that during the live broadcast we can't go get our own beer. Somebody's got to bring
Absolutely. I think that's probably what we're most concerned about. Anyways, no, well,
the
all right. Switching gears from ISS and impressions, the good folks over in Colorado, there at NBM, have got their Denver show coming up here very quickly. So we kind of talked to Dave Pomeroy over there from NBM, and unfortunately we can't make it to that show to do the show live, but we did just want to share with everybody again that they're very excited about this show, and I think for good reason. This is a 2-day concept that they're giving it a shot, and it's new, and I think that and as do I, is a great solution for the underserved trade show markets, and certainly as we've talked on this show before, Denver has never really been a place where a show's ever taken place. So that I would say that's an underserved market, and buyers attending the show will still get a great reception. The awards engraving, printware, and sign and digital graphics industries. So if you're in the Denver area, that show is right around the corner. It's going to be October 2nd and the 3rd. So head over to nbmshows.com and check that out. So I think that is about most of the other stuff. How about we?
Aaron, and by the way, I did chat with Dave Pomeroy in Philly about this show, and something he pointed out to me, and I think he might be correct. He said, this 2-day show concept in some of the smaller market areas might be the answer for getting into those market areas, and there are a lot of places that you don't see trade shows. If this 2-day concept really works, I think that it might open some doors for NBM and maybe some other folks as well, because I'm certain that everybody else doing trade shows is going to have a very, very close eye on this and how the concept works out.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree, and I think definitely worth checking out. I wish that I was available to actually make it to that show, but as I mentioned earlier, I'll be in Phoenix with the family on a little vacation, so. Wife wouldn't allow me to go work on my vacation. So, all right. Well, before we get into the meat of our show, we've had a great start already, but we're going to keep rolling here. We would just want to remind everybody that our regular listeners know this, but Two Regular Guys is all about garment decorating, personalization. Obviously, we're going to have a little bit of fun, but we try to avoid rants, lectures, and we certainly aren't selling. We don't do this for our employers, but we're recording this at 9:45 in the evening here in Central Time. So we do this for the industry, and so for the past 2 years, the Two Regular Guys has been the first and most listened to garment decorating industry podcast on the planet. I love that we can say that. We're very humbled by all of you tuning in each week, and we work really hard to bring you information that will make your business better and in turn our industry better. And so we appreciate you listening, and would also appreciate it if you would visit our webpage over at tworegularguys.com and suggest some topics, get involved and chat with us on social media. We're at the number 2 Regular Guys at most of the major social media, from Facebook and Twitter, and you can Google Plus and whatnot. So, and also we'd love if you'd give us a review on iTunes. That will help us as well. And we also very much appreciate the sponsors that help us put on this show without it being out of our pockets. So let's go ahead and hear a quick word from Enmart. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump back in. You can go ahead and take off from here, Terry.
All right. Thanks to the folks at Enmart for helping us out. And the subject for today is the perpetuation of bad production advice. And this came about because, I'll tell you the impetus of it was I was teaching a class at Workhorse Products last weekend, and as with every class I do, somebody raises their hand and says, "Well, I heard you do it like this," or "I heard that this is the best way to do this," and I'm like, "Gosh, where did you hear that?" Because either that's old advice or it's just flat out wrong advice, and And in my classes, Aaron, and I know you know this, you've sat on my classes before. I'm not the guy that says there is one way to do this.
Hmm.
In every class I do, I say, okay, here are the options, and there's no one right way. So what I want you to do is look at all the options and pick the way that's best for you. But a lot of the things that come out in classes, and of course, you and I, Aaron, talk to customers all the time, and we hear these just crazy, outlandish ideas about how to run production, and it just, well, anyway, the bottom line is somebody just hit me with one that I'd never even heard before. I'm going to talk about it a little later on, but I thought, wow, we need to talk about this on Two Regular Guys, because our regular listeners will probably get a kick out of hearing them because they probably heard them themselves. But we get a lot of newbies, a lot of new folks to the industry who listen as well. And hey, if we can help one person to sidestep some of these bad ideas, I think it's going to be a good thing for them.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right. It's incredible what some people say, and where these things are coming from, and as the commercial goes, of course everything on the internet is true, and I think that's kind of what has happened to our society and our world, and definitely our industry. Anybody with an iPhone can now post on YouTube, and now they are the, using quotes here, expert at this because they've gone ahead and posted something on YouTube. That's one area. Social media is a huge place where the information there you just kind of shake your head at.
YouTube is weighted down with really, really bad information.
Yeah, and then the social media, the Facebook groups that you see in our industry, there's definitely some good advice and some good groups, but boy, there's no real qualification to actually be part of those. So and if you're loud enough and you have it, in fact, we talked about this years ago with some of the forums that were out there. The thing that always stood out to me was with these forums, the people that were on there posting all the time were on there for a reason. It's because they didn't have any work. They didn't have anything else to do. The people that were actually good at this stuff, that probably knew what they were doing, were too busy out there printing shirts to spend all their days on the forums. So
that is so true. It wasn't even on our list, but that reminded me. I remember someone arguing with me on. I don't remember if it was the U.S. Screen Forum or T-shirt forums, but somebody said, "What is the most common program, software program, art program used in screen printing?" And I responded, "Well, it's Corel Draw." And I wasn't saying, "Hey, you should use Corel Draw." I was just saying it is the most common program. And this guy just belligerently jumped on there and said, "No, that is absolutely incorrect. The most commonly used program is Adobe Illustrator." Well, hey, you know what? If you're an Illustrator guy, knock yourself out. It's a great program. But he was basing it on the fact that, hey, that's what I like, so therefore it is the best program. Mm-hmm. I was basing it on the fact that I'm out there talking to customers every single day, and probably 95% of them use Corel Draw. I mean, I was just answering based on fact, and he was he was and quite angry about it. So I figure the angrier the person is on a forum, the less likely the information they're sharing is true.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a really good way to look at it. It's almost kind of like Yelp reviews. I honestly look for some negative Yelp reviews and see how ridiculous they are, and then I typically go to that restaurant because anyways. And then another place that you'll get people that where bad advice comes from. We kind of talked about in the forums and stuff like that, so that you kind of got some other decorators that are out there. But then your employees can also come to your place of business with some bad information in their head, and be very confident about that, and push that around your shop. So
Aaron, I especially see that when people come to me and they bought a new business, and I'm like, well, is it an up and running business? Oh yeah, we've got 5 employees, and were all those employees working for the previous company? Yes. And I'm like, okay, you need to come to class, and you need to learn. Well, no, I'm never going to print a shirt. No, I'm not talking about you learning to print, although you're going to print a shirt, but I want you to understand how it's supposed to be done. And it's so funny because those folks who kind of kick and scream like, no, these people are great employees. They really know what they're doing. They're the ones looking at each other, nodding, going, "Oh my God,
Yeah.
these people have sold us a bill of goods."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So, all right. Well, let's start getting into some examples of poor advice out there and in the screen printing world, and then obviously we're going to need to get the right answer as well. So,
Well, sure.
why don't you kick us off there, Terry?
Well, a couple of things, and I'll be honest here, and I could have probably spent the entire show talking about things that people have said to me, that they've been advised, by a supplier, or by another screen printer, or just 100 other places that people get bad advice. But one of the things that jumps out when I first teach people to set up a multicolor job, somebody always raises their hand and says, "Well, wait a minute, you're not flashing between every color?" And I'm like, no. This is called wet on wet printing. That means you print wet on wet on wet. The only time you ever use your flash, and I'm gonna give you the okay. There's no absolutes out there in the world, but 99.999% of the time, the only time you ever use your flash unit is to flash a white underbase, then print colors wet on top. And that's when, especially the folks who bought a business or who've been trained by somebody that sold them a business, they'll look at each other like, "Oh gosh, I had no idea." And as you might imagine, printing and flashing and printing and flashing and printing and flashing, it's a 4-color job, and you're flashing it 3 times. You can imagine how that impacts your production. And the only and here's the reason why that people flash between colors. It's either they are using too low mesh count and laying down too much ink, and the ink is actually smearing against the other colors, or the screens are not tight enough and they're moving and causing the colors to get muddy where they touch, and causing an issue where is the colors, you fix it. But flashing between colors is a big giant band-aid. If you have to flash between colors, there's something else wrong in your process. You're doing something else wrong. And screen printing is screen printing. It means that if right, then everything else falls into place. 90% of screen printing is getting your screens right. The right mesh, make sure they're tight, make sure you're printing off contact, and that resolves those kind of issues for you. So if you are right now flashing between colors, you are not doing this correctly. So if you need help, give me a call.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What else in the screen printing world?
I don't hear this quite as often, but I still get it enough that it made the list. Is all you need is one mesh count, and for years it was all you need is 110 mesh screens, which a 110 mesh screen means that there's 110 threads in every inch of that mesh. I rarely ever. The only time I print with a lower mesh screen is like an 87 mesh when I print puff ink. But my basic screen for printing, and this is your Jim's Towing Service. You guys always make fun of me for using as an example.
Yeah.
But Jim's Towing Service, one color on the front and the phone number on the back. I'm going to print that through a 156 mesh all day long, or higher. And there are different meshes for different things that you need to do. Now, you don't have to have a dozen different meshes in your shop, but you're going to have maybe 5 depending on your marketplace. But that concept of only one mesh, or even worse, only 110 mesh, that is an error. And that's advice from 20 years ago. And a lot of this advice people give you is, it's not that they're giving you bad advice, they just don't know the difference. Most of your suppliers, once you get a little experience in screen printing, you're going to be way more knowledgeable about the process than they are.
Yeah. All right. What else have you heard?
Well, here's the one that inspired this program. Um, I was teaching a class at Workhorse Products, my 2-day complete screen printing business course last Saturday and Sunday, and this gentleman right in the front row, he says, "Well, I used the new photopolymer. It's not really new, but I used a pure photopolymer emulsion." And the reason I use it is because my supplier told me if you buy pure photopolymer, you only need to coat one side of the screen. And I just stopped. I'm like, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? What did he tell you? Coat one side of the screen. And then I looked at Tyler. Tyler's the president of Workhorse Products, and he's in the back. And I looked at him. I'm like, Tyler, ever heard anything like that? And he goes, never in my life. it's the whole point of coating your screen with a liquid emulsion is you coat one side and you coat the other side, and the emulsion holds onto itself. That's what makes that's what gives you a really good durable screen to print with. So I mean, that comment was totally out of left field and totally in error. I'd never heard anything about it like that before. And let me give you one more screen printing one, Aaron.
All right.
There is somewhere out there is a perfect white ink, and it is so funny because people come to my classes and they'll go, okay, well, see, for my colors I use Wilflex, but for white I use Rutland. And the next guy goes, well, really? Because I use Rutland for my colors, but I use Union for my white. The next guy's go, wait, I use Union for all my colors. You see where I'm going here?
Yes, yes.
People are just going and looking for that perfect white ink to use. And then they say to me, well, what white ink do you use? And I'll always say, no matter where I'm teaching class, I always say to whoever pulls the product, I'll say, well, tell these guys what white ink I use. And they laugh and go, you tell us to get the white one that's open. because the bottom line is, yeah, there are different whites, and some are creamier and some have more solids. And bottom line is, 99% of the problems people have with white ink, it's not the ink. And I get that all the time. Well, there's something wrong with my ink. There's something wrong with my emulsion. There's something wrong with this. It's never those things. It's you. It's always you. And it's not properly understanding how to use the white ink. Couple of other things that people do is they try to use the white ink as one of the colors in the graphic. For instance, an American flag on a Navy shirt. They want to print that as a 3-color. White underbase, and the white is also the stars and the stripes, and then blue and red. You have to lay down way too much ink to get a proper lay down of the colors on top. What you need is a 4th screen, which is your underbase, really clean, thin layer of white ink. It does not have to be bright white. You flash it, you lay down a thin blue, a thin red, and a very thin highlight white. That's how you make a perfect print. The other problem people get into is they think that I've got to lay down a lot of white ink, so they jump back to that one, try to lay down tons of white ink. Bump up your mesh, print through a 156 or something like that, print that underbase, use a highlight white. Your life will be 1,000 times simpler. Yes, you're going to use an additional screen. Your print is going to, the difference is going to be that print where you use 3 screens is going to look like an amateur. That print with 4 screens is going to make you look like a professional printer. And as I've said on this show 1,000 times, there are lots and lots and lots of screen printers. There aren't very many good screen printers. So use that 4th screen. You'll be a good screen printer.
Yeah, that's good. I like your comment about the fact that there aren't very many good screen printers out there. I mean, there aren't very many good screen printers even that are selling into some of the big department store type stuff or big events and stuff like that. We've been doing some different testing on different stuff and some of the different products that we use, and one of the things that people always want to compare the durability to is screen print. And, so you'll get a shirt to test and it's like, well, I can't compare this because it's already, I mean, I have so many shirts in my closet that have been screen printed that I've, gotten or bought that are all cracked and coming off. It's like,
right.
Now because I talked to you, I know what the problem is. But again, that person probably thought that they, how to check for cure was just to check on the top, and that was that. And
and you know, my kids, you know, I have 4 kids and 3 out of college, and I don't think they ever bought a T-shirt where they didn't bring it home and hand it to me and let me run it down the dryer again to make sure it's cured properly.
There you go.
Do not wash it until I dry it properly.
That's a good idea. Maybe I need to put my shirts into a heat press or something. All right.
There you
go. Well, let's talk a little sublimation here.
Well, this is your area, Aaron. Give us some ideas of mistakes that people are making in sublimation.
Definitely. And I think, you know, a lot of this that I'm hearing and seeing is coming out of these social media groups, these Facebook groups and stuff like that. And you know, and like you said, you know, if you disagree with some of these people, you get yelled at and kicked and screamed and all sorts of stuff, you know. So it's a little bit tough. So this is my forum to yell at them. But the big one is that you use 400 degrees to sublimate everything, regardless of what the product is, and that's definitely a false statement. 400 degrees was chosen because it's a nice round number, and even if your press has got some cold spots in it, that it should give it enough to get it all the way to where it needs. I could be quoting the number wrong, but I believe it's about 363 degrees where the ink starts sublimating, and I think different colors move at different times. So every product's going to be a little bit different. You know, obviously ceramic, aluminum, fabric all take heat differently than the others. So each product does need a specific time and temperature to get the best product you can out of it. And 400 degrees is not, you know, so don't just go out and buy whatever and try to sublimate at 400 degrees. You know, buy a quality product from a quality supplier that's going to give you the specific time and temperature that you need to succeed. So that's the first one.
and that's a great one, you know, because that falls into the category of, I just want one product. I want one machine. I want one this. I don't want to think about it. You know, well, guess what? It's real business. You have to think about it, and you have to do it the proper way.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure you have more. What else do you have on your list of
the other one, and I think this probably falls into stuff that we've talked about lots. In fact, I think you kind of brought it up in the screen printing part of it, but mainly they're pointing to the wrong issues. When they're having issues, people are coming back and pointing to the wrong things typically, and it may be one of these things. You know, it may be the substrate's got a coating problem on it. It may be that the printer's not printing correctly and the colors aren't correct, or it may be that the paper is not right. But that's not very common for those things to happen, especially nowadays that the sublimation market's matured more. You know, again, if you're buying products from a reputable company that has all the information from you, those things are really not going to be an issue anymore, and it's typically going to be what we go back to. We're kind of talking with some folks the other day, kind of about some stuff around the office, and you get these people that spend all this energy and money, you know, investing in this and that and the other thing, but then they go buy that $300 heat press, you know, and they can't figure out, you know, well, this substrate's bad. Well, probably not. It's probably your heat press or or whatever. So, you know, kind of pointing out and pinpointing the right things, and as you said earlier, it's probably you. It's probably something that you're doing in the process. It probably has very little to do with the substrate or the printer or the paper.
And you know, Aaron, that's not a sales rep or supplier pointing a finger saying, no, it's not us, it's you. It's like you have to be willing to accept the fact that you might be doing this wrong, and hey, a lot of us are here ready and willing to help you do it right, but you can't start with the assumption that it's everything but me. Yeah.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, Terry, because that does really That's exactly it. It's not me sitting there going, "Oh, it's definitely never us." That's not true. There are times where, it is something that the bad lot or something happened. So these things do
Sure.
happen, and we're gonna, like everybody else, we're gonna step up and do what's right. But 99% of the time when we have a technical support call about sublimation, if we can get the conversation to the point where people become reasonable, and they'll send us the file, and we'll duplicate everything. I mean, we can even go back and pick the exact lot of the substrate and duplicate it, and we go so far as to even videotape it and show you, oh, this works if you do it correctly, if your heat press is truly getting to X temperature, and that you're truly getting enough pressure, and it's even, and all these other things. So
Right.
again, we're not, nobody that I know of, is out there just to try to screw you over. And so something's not working. I get that you're frustrated. I get all that stuff, but to just come in guns a-blazing that it's something else is never going to get you there. You're basically just going to get your blood pressure up and have a company pissed off at you that probably isn't going to want to help you out anymore. Why don't you come in? Let's work together. Let's solve the problem, and get you back up and running and making money again. So,
Aaron, we have a friend, an industry friend, Jeff Proctor, that you and I've known for many, many
yeah,
years. And
yeah.
Jeff's been involved in ink sales for more than one company, and he came up to me one time at a show and said, "Listen, Terry, you." Of course, it was a very long story because Jeff's from the South, and he couldn't say it the
We've
same.
had him on the show, yeah.
But he said, "You have to stop telling people they can thin their inks." And I'm like, well, Jeff, if you're telling me that you can't thin inks, there's probably about 1 million shirts that I printed over the years that are coming back because I thin ink all the time. He goes, no, it's cool with you because you know how to do it. You do it right. I'm like, okay, let me get this straight. You want me to tell people, no, you can't thin ink because some people do it wrong, and then they call you and tell you there's something wrong with your ink. And he goes, that's exactly right. And it falls into that. It's there are right ways to do things and wrong ways to do things, and the instinct is to call up and say, hey, my ink washed out, there's something wrong with your ink.
Yeah, exactly. So
What else you have in with sublimation?
Yep. So one more thing with sublimation that I've heard, and again, coming from the claim that you don't have to use a sublimation paper, that you can just go use a copy paper. And while technically you can do that, and have some sublimation occur, because you're going to save the 3 cents on that piece of paper. That just mind numbing to me. But the amount of ink that you're going to have to lay down on that paper, which is a lot more expensive than that piece of paper, and also the number of substrates you're going to ruin because you aren't getting a good transfer, will be mind-boggling. So the sublimation paper is something that you should use. There's several different brands out there. They're basically all the same. Everybody's got theirs that they like, which is totally fine, just like with your screen printing inks, Terry. But spend the extra $3 per 100 pack to get an actual sublimation paper, and stop buying the Hammermill stuff and wondering why half of your products don't come out looking bright and vibrant and crisp. So
that probably falls in the category of dated information, because back in the late 70s, early 80s, we used to screen print sublimation ink, and we would screen print it because, as far as I know, there wasn't sublimation paper then, and we would screen print it on 20-pound bond typing paper. Anybody who doesn't know what typing paper is, it's what you put in your copy machine. But but and somebody from that period might just repeat that and say, well, this works just as good. Well, I don't know if it works just as good, but that's all we had.
Yeah. Well, but you're screen printing that ink, so that's a different ink altogether.
Oh, absolutely.
The inkjet printable stuff, the way that the chemistry of it needs a releasing agent on the sublimation paper to get it from point A to point B. And when people used to use a laser printer to do awards with sublimation, you could just use straight paper. So, not saying, I'm saying if you've got an inkjet sublimation printer, which is 99.9% of all the people out there sublimating right now, um, get an actual inkjet sublimation paper to work with it. So
I'm absolutely not advocating for 20-pound bond typing paper. I'm just just throwing out there that there a lot of people get their information from what they knew 30 years ago, and unfortunately continue to repeat it.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a very good point. So, and that's why we are having this show.
Exactly right.
All right, and then the fact that you called it typing paper does
that says it all, doesn't it?
What's typing, Terry? Oh, sorry. Is that what I do on my iPhone with my thumbs, or? All right. All right. Well, the next section is and I think I mentioned it earlier, but we got some help as usual. Our lack of knowledge on the embroidery side, at least when we started all this, was fairly limited. The more we've done this, the more we've had an opportunity to listen to Eric and Christine, and then our good friend Andrea Bomarito from ZSK. I feel like we're becoming experts in embroidery. I'm thinking about going out and selling some embroidery equipment, but
I learned tons last week listening to Christine talking about the supplies you use in embroidery. So
yeah, I would be one of the,
let's take turns down Andrea's list. What do you think?
Absolutely, and if I was out there selling embroidery equipment and supplies, I would be the one perpetuating bad advice. So we're going to read from the expert here. So this is all from again our friend Andrea Bomarito from ZSK, and so why don't you start us off, Terry, and I'll pick up after you.
I will, and I can certainly hear somebody saying this. Don't change your needle until it breaks. It's good to go. It's made of steel. Just keep running with it. When actually what Andrea says is you need to change needles at certain intervals, and I'm assuming that based on what she's shared with us here that needles are going to dull and cause issues with you as you go along, and so you need to be on a schedule to change out your needles.
Yep, absolutely. That's a good point, and actually that also is the case in vinyl cutting. Your needle, your blade is going to dull just like the needle. So, all right. The next one she's got here for us is if you're running a large order on a single head. She says, people say you can do it, but where do you start losing money at is the question that you really need to be asking yourself. So she suggests that you make friends with the contract shops so you don't turn away those big orders, still make money on them, but don't lose time or sacrifice your other customers just for the quote unquote big order. Understand your capacity limitations, and if you're taking on a lot of those big jobs, it's probably time to invest some of that money back into some additional heads there. It sounds like so.
Well, and that's true of any of the decoration methods we're talking about. When I was a manual shop, and I've talked about this in seminars before. When I went in a manual shop, which meant me or an employee pulling a squeegee. On my price sheet, you could have ordered 10,000 shirts. Was there any chance I was going to print those? Not any at all. I'm going to job that out to somebody who has an automatic press, but it was on the price sheet. So, that's good advice from Andrea for all the different types of decoration. But another thing, and I remember Andrea talking about this in our seminar together, that some people, the advice will be you can outsource all your digitizing. You don't need any kind of software. And Andrea wrote in all caps, angrily, wrong. She goes, no matter if you do all your digitizing in-house or you send it out, you need some sort of software for editing and modifying. And the example she gave in our seminar was, what if you buy pre-prepared digitized images? You still want to be able to drop in names and dates and things like that. So you do need some type of need some type of software to do that editing at least.
All right. Yep. Good information there, and Agreed. Again, and as I read through these earlier, I definitely was going, oh well, good. They have all the same problems that we've had over the years, so at least similar. All right. So the next one here is, and this definitely brings me back to the early direct-to-garment days, but taking on orders before you get the machine. Yeah, that is nothing but a recipe for disaster. And at the very least, don't make any commitments as to when you'll be able to get that order turned out. You're going to need time to play with the machine. You're going to need to understand how it works and become proficient at it. You know, if you're buying from the right company, you're certainly going to get a lot of help in that regard. But I don't think any of these tools, and I don't think we want them to be. I mean, I think we need to be able to have them, understand how to use them so we can differentiate ourselves from all the bad printers out there. But
Right.
or embroiderers in this case, and but you could take the order, but she doesn't recommend until you have had your training, understand the different pieces that go into it, etc. Just it's great, and I hate telling somebody to turn away business, but do your best to at least put them off and make sure that because you will be frustrated. I mean, there's just no two ways around it, and you're going to go, "Oh, this machine sucks. This your embroidery machine doesn't work." And again, the same theme here. It's probably you.
Exactly right. And Aaron, you and I probably everybody that sells any type of equipment deals with this regularly. And we've all had that customer say, "Well, do you know what time the truck's getting there? Because I've got 150 sweatshirts I need to print, full color, they're black, and I need to print them for an order 8 a.m. tomorrow morning." And I'd be like, you sure you don't want to take a look at the manual or something? Maybe print a shirt before you.
Yeah.
But, what do you do? Well, hey, here's something that I actually knew because I learned this from Christine last Friday. But she said that some people will say, well, you only need one type of backing, and backing is basically the solid, that something substantial that you sew through. If the fabric you're sewing on, isn't stable enough, or the fabric's going to give the backing gives it some stability for sewing, and that either cuts or tears away. Listen to me, man. I'm
very impressed. Now I knew all this stuff too because I listened to the show. But
very good. Well, as Andrea says, and she was correct, if that were true, there'd only be one kind of backing to buy. There are different backings that provide stability for different types of fabric, and you have to take that into account when you're sewing, depending on stitch count, things like that. So you have to understand your consumables.
Yep. All right. Well, and the last one she's got for us, and again, I really appreciate this, Andrea. Tons of great information as usual. But the other thing out there, cheap threads, cheap bobbins, cheap garments, et cetera, that you get what you pay for. Not what she says is not all threads and other pieces of the finished product are treated equally, and again, you get what you pay for. So, if you're making an investment into an embroidery machine, as Andrea has told us in seminars and whatnot, you're talking about $15,000. So you've made that investment, and then you're going to go out and cheap out on the stuff that you're actually selling, and what's going to differentiate you as a quality and professional. Right. It doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense.
And that's frustrating for all of us as suppliers, because when we hear this, we know that you're not going to be successful. You're going to have problems, and that's why we're so adamantly telling you, no, this is what you need to do. You need to have the right tools, and it's not because we want to sell you something else. It's because we want you to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And and especially this, coming from Andrea, they don't sell those things. They don't sell threads and bobbins and all that other stuff. So they could care less, honestly, what you go and buy. Exactly. So for her to bring up something like that, exactly what you're saying there, Terry, is that she wants you to succeed. as we talked about a lot on this, let's all work together to make this industry better. So, all right, well, that's a great info on embroidery. How about we get into the direct to garment here and
All right.
cover some of that. I actually, I know that you're now our resident direct to garment guy, but when you put this on the outline, I had something that just immediately popped to mind. So I want to.
You go first. Then have at it.
Yeah. So, this goes back to our history at US Screen, and when you and I were first on the circuit together and out there, and there was definitely a lot of competition between the T-Jet and the brother equipment that's out there, and I just adamantly remember people coming up to our booth as we're sitting there printing black shirts with white ink, saying, "Well, brother says you can't print white ink." And I mean, holding the shirt in our hands, that just came. I mean, it's not like we were just holding this shirt there and saying, "Oh, yeah, this was printed on there." We're actually printing it on the machine in front of them, and they're still sitting there going, "Well, this says it can't be done." Well, okay.
I swear, just look down. Just look down.
Absolutely. If there was any bad advice, that was bad advice, because at that point it's just a flat out lie, and kind of sad on their part. But
well, Aaron, well, I think that we got their attention when we saw a whole table of those guys, the sales guys at Rock Bottom there in Long Beach. Mm-hmm. And as if anybody's ever been to Rock Bottom, they know that there's a beer called Great White. And we sent about 5 pictures of Great White and said to the waitress, "Now make sure that you say this beer is from the guys at US Screen. It's called Great White Beer."
Yeah, it didn't take to. Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, we'll tell us some other stuff that you've heard out there even recently.
Well, Aaron, this is kind of along the same lines, and unlike yourself, I'm not going to mention what company did this, but I was walking through. I was actually talking to our friend Dave from the UK, who works for CADLink, and we were talking about software for direct-to-garment printers, and just happened to stop. In our conversation, we just stopped right next to a booth where direct-to-garment printers were being sold, and it just sheer coincidence. And the customer said to the sales rep, "Well, what's it going to cost me for a print head if it goes out?" And the salesman, straight-faced, said to the customer, "Well, I have no idea what a print head costs because we've never had a print head go out on any of our direct-to-garment printers." And anybody who has ever touched a direct-to-garment printer knows that is just not true. And that type of thing, it's hard enough for customers out there in the world to be successful and learn how to use the equipment, and to just blatantly lie to a customer to their face. I don't know how you sleep at night when you do that kind of thing. And certainly that customer at some point in time went back and said, "Well, wait a minute, you told me," and of course this particular company, it's always, "Well, you did something wrong, it's your fault," so
yeah that's and honestly, you said direct to garment, but heck, I would go be as bold to go so far to say anybody that's ever been involved with inkjet printing in general will have had a head go out at some point.
Oh, absolutely. It's consumable. I mean, the printhead is a consumable, and just understand that at some point in time, no matter what machine you have, whether it's direct to garment or large format printing or whatever, you will replace printheads. It's just like ink. It lasts longer than ink, but at some point. But hey, on the flip side, when you replace that printhead, it's like a new engine in your car. So
yeah. Exactly. All right. Well, what else you got in direct to garment there?
Well, a couple of things about pre-treating. You do need to spray pre-treat on a true of all direct to garment printers. You need to spray pre-treat on the shirt first. There are some methods that are better than others, but you do need to power spray it on. The squirt bottles, that's not going to work. I'm just surprised how many people today, even now, are showing using a paint roller to apply pre-treat to a shirt. And gosh, there, when people first started printing with white ink, that was one of the things that they tried, and with limited success, it just lays down way too much pre-treatment. It's just, I like to describe it as the Hobby Lobby method of pre-treating. So if you can't afford an automatic pre-treat machine, and more direct-to-garment people buy a pre-treat machine with their machine, if you can't afford that, then you're going to use a Wagner handheld paint sprayer. Anything beyond that is not going to do a good job for you. And when I walk through a trade show this year and watch people demonstrating how to use a paint roller to apply pre-treat, I feel bad for those customers, because you're being taught a method that was semi-successful 8 years ago, and then quickly discarded as a method for doing that.
Yeah. Okay. And what else you got for us in the direct-to-garment world?
Well, this is one actually that somebody else mentioned to me just recently. One of the ink companies mentioned to me that there's a lot of folks out there giving the advice of flushing out your ink lines and your print head with Simple Green. And Simple Green's a great cleaner. If anybody doesn't know, Simple Green's a cleaner that you buy at the hardware store. Yep. And it's a pure detergent, great for things like degreasing screens and things like that. But our good friend Dave Garrick, who's the vice president of sales at Atlas Screen Supply, he has a great quote that he always says, and he says it about screen printing, but it applies to all this. He says, if you're a screen printer, use screen printing chemicals and supplies. Don't go to the hardware store and use something else. And that's true of all these different things. There are specific chemicals made for flushing ink lines and for flushing through your print head. Don't try to cut a corner with your $15,000-$20,000 machine by buying Simple Green for $5 a gallon or whatever it costs, instead of using the proper chemical that's probably just a little bit more expensive than that. So I'll leave on Dave Garrick's recommendation of use the proper chemicals and supplies for your industry.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, the last thing I wanted to talk about is I wanted to get in, just had a couple things here on vinyl and heat transfer that I've heard. I won't go real deep into this first one here, because it probably is starting to sound like a broken record to our listeners that listen regularly. But getting back to the heat press, though. Not any heat press will do. It just is not true. Especially when you're talking about heat transfer, especially when you're talking about laser transfers. The evenness of the heat and the amount of pressure you can get on there will make a huge difference. And so making the proper investment, and like I said, in laser transfers, it's the most important as far as I'm concerned. So I said I wasn't going to spend too much time on it, but get a good heat press. All right. I was going to leave it at that. All right.
Aaron, if you and I ever have a coat of arms for the two regular guys, the little slogan across the bottom, and that little, that little scripty thing will say, buy a good quality heat press.
Yeah.
That will be our crusade.
Yeah. And I have nothing against, the stuff that's not U.S. made if it was good quality equipment, so. Anyways,
it's like the customers that say, well, there's something wrong. And, well, what kind of heat press do you have? It's orange. What do you mean it's orange? It doesn't really have a name on it. It's just orange.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the first sign.
Support on that. Oh, okay. All right. Anyways,
what else do you have, Aaron?
yeah. The next thing, and I have talked about this in one of our quick tips before, but thought it was worth mentioning again. And I think this isn't only heat transfer that I'm talking about here, but we've talked about it in the other decorating methods like direct to garment and whatnot, but and Andrea mentioned it earlier as well. The shirt does matter. Just no two ways around it. The type of shirt that you use matters. Right now my favorite shirt is the Fruit of the Loom HD product. It is got a nice tight weave to it, so you've got plenty of area for that transfer to hold on to. So you invest in a good shirt. Not only is your transfer going to last longer, but your customer is going to like that nice quality shirt as well. So, and then
you have one more point to wrap up our discussion.
Yeah, definitely. So last one I have is the big misconception out there. This is talking about vinyl solvent printing, and the big sexy thing to buy if you're looking at a vinyl printer is what everybody calls a print and cut machine. Meaning that right in that same machine you can print and then cut. But I think the big misconception there is that those machines are not print and cut machines. They're actually print or cut machines. The way that those machines operate is there's a print mechanism, and there's also a cut mechanism, all on the same bar, and one docks while the other one's working. So what's going to happen is that printer is going to go ahead and print. It's going to print everything that it needs to print. It's going to rewind the media, and then the cutter is going to come back and then cut. And then everybody thinks, oh, that's great. It's all in one. And I argue that is actually very limiting for your production. If you had two separate pieces of equipment, a printer and a cutter, and you put those together, you can run the printer, get enough slack into that print, and go ahead and feed that into your cutter and be printing and cutting all at the same time. We've actually done some speed tests, and you can get 4 times as much production out of using 2 separate machines. So, and then the other bonus to that 2 separate machine setup is, if something does go wrong with your printer or your cutter, you're not down completely. You could still get some cut jobs out, or you could still get some printing done, and have a secondary backup. So that's the other piece of advice that I hear out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess the other part that I didn't really mention is, though, if you do go out and do some research on it, cost-wise, both setups are actually going to be about the same. You'd think that the one that's all in one would be a little less expensive, but that's just not the case. So make sure you're not getting sucked into the, it shows really well at a trade show,
Right.
But so does that piece of junk from the slice it and dice it thing, and then you get it home, and the squeegee that doesn't suck water kind of thing. So, all right. Well, that's all I've got, and I think we've covered lots of time. So let's go ahead and hear a quick word from our other sponsor, the Equipment Zone, who's been with us for for a long time, and really appreciate all the support. So let's hear a word from Equipment Zone. All right. So we'll do the quick tip and just kind of wrap quickly. I think we've been going for quite a while, so this will be a long one.
We're about 1 hour and 7 minutes so far.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. I've got it set for 90 minutes, so not a big deal. Okay. All right. So I'll let you come back again, and then I'll do my tip, and we'll wrap it up.
Well, thanks to Equipment Zone for sponsoring us from the very beginning, from when we first started our hour-long show. We really appreciate all the support that we get from the folks over at Equipment Zone. And Aaron, it's your week for one quick tip that people can use today. So
yeah, good deal. We got back in sync here a little bit. This was mainly your show, and I get the tips, so that's working out good. My tip's about dealing with heat transfer lines. Everybody's decorated poly performance wear, polyester shirts, and one of the challenges with that is when you're pressing stuff, the actual transfer or the liner will cause the polyester garments to have this permanent line around the graphic from where that paper indented. That polyester basically turns to a liquid, and then as it cools with that paper liner there, it creates that line. So it's a big challenge. There's not one solution that works for everybody, but I've actually done some things and tested and talked with people and stuff like that, and have come up with 4 different things that you should try. I think there's probably some combination of the 4 that will work best for you in your scenario. What I'm going to do is I'll share one with you guys here, and then I'm going to direct you over to my blog over at aaronmontgomery.info, and you can get the other 3 there, and also my team over at Coastal did a video on one of those processes as well, and I have that video linked in my blog. So the one that's probably the easiest, but maybe most costly, is to just make sure that your paper is larger than the heat press that you're using. That way that paper falls off the edge, and this will eliminate the paper causing the lines. The one thing to note here is that you can still have issues with the edges of your heat press causing the lines, but I normally see something like that happen when somebody's just got way too much pressure. So you shouldn't really get lines from your edges of your press unless you've just got too much pressure on it. So, but again, for the 3 more ideas and a video, go check out my blog over at aaronmontgomery.info. All right, Terry. Well, as we said earlier, my open house is actually going on as you're listening to this on the 25th of September. So if you
I just watched Back to the Future like 2 days ago. I had to watch it.
I'm awesome.
Reliving it now. You're probably on a hoverboard right there at the 25th anniversary open house.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're not here with us, then you're going to have to get a time machine to make it. But what do you got coming up, Terry?
Well, I have my complete screen printing business course coming up at Atlas Screen Supply in Chicago, November 14th through 15th. My next class at Workhorse Products in Phoenix will be in January. We haven't set the days yet, but it'll be sometime right after the ISS show in Long Beach. And any of the upcoming events that I'm doing, you can find them on my website, which is terrycombs.com, and click on tour dates, and you'll find us there.
All right, good stuff. All right, well, make sure you head on over to Amazon also and type in Terry Combs, and can find all your books, Direct to Garment, and also Screen Printing, a Practical Guide. $5 for those books, unbelievable deal. So get those, and then the book that I read to my son at night to get him to go to sleep is Your Scheduling and Estimating Production. I'm kidding. Very good information, just not it's not cat in a hat. But
that is my fault, because you did say to me that before we recorded, it says, well, my wife's reading my son a book, so. And I'm like, well, hey, is it one of my books? Because that'll put her right to sleep.
Yeah, that's good that you're blaming yourself on that. Definitely your fault. Great information, and that one's only $3, so definitely worthwhile purchase. And I'm not even going to bring up the next one here, Terry, because I don't even know where it's at. But someday, 52 Niche Markets will be available on Amazon. And
what's sad is I'm also writing another 52 Niche Markets at the same time.
Awesome. All right. Well, upcoming shows, we mentioned the NBM Denver show, October 2nd through the 3rd. ISS Fort Worth will be coming up shortly thereafter, October 15th through the 17th, and we will be broadcasting live as of right now. See, and then SGIA out in Atlanta is right behind that, so we're going to be on the road here pretty quick, and that's November 4th to the 6th, and we will be live from SGIA as well, and looking forward to that. So I think that's we've gone into bonus time here, Terry, so great stuff, great information, and we will catch all of you next week. We're still working on what the show will be for the next week, and I will actually be in Phoenix, so I don't know what we can do, Terry. Maybe we can figure out a way to actually do the show face-to-face, not at a trade show.
Maybe we could go to Munchmania, our old favorite place to have lunch when we're at US Screen.
Awesome. All right. Well, have a good week, and I'll see you in Phoenix next week.
All right. See you next week.